Welcome everyone to the RV Family Summit. I'm your host, Michelle Abraham. Today I am here with Brendan and Kerensa, and they are from rvtofreedom.com and drive-dive-and-devour.com. So they have been RVing on the road full-time for almost 4 years this coming winter. So they have so much experience, and they're going to talk to us today about how to get started going into an RV full-time, what to look for when buying an RV. And I'm really looking forward to this interview because, as you know, I'm about to go into an RV with my family full-time, and we haven't bought an RV yet. So this interview is going to be exciting for me especially, but also you guys out there. I'm looking forward to what you guys have to say. So welcome, Brendan and Kerensa.
Hi.
Thank you. Hi. Glad to be here.
Well, thanks for being here with us, guys. So we'll take a couple minutes and tell us about you guys and how you got to where you are and who you're traveling with in your RV.
Well, we're Kerensa and Brandon, and we have been on the road for almost 4 years, as you said. And we decided to do this when we were living around New York City. We wanted to change our lives and get a little bit
out of the rat race.
Yeah. And we like to travel, so this was one of the easiest and best ways to do it for us.
Right. And we get to see things more than just two weeks a year that they allow us. And we get to go see everything we wanted to see because we've kind of lived all over the country in different spots, but there's just so much. We know there's a lot out there that we wanted to see.
That's awesome. Well, I'm so glad you guys made this adventure, and now you're helping the rest of us kind of get started on our adventure. On your website, rvtofreedom.com, you have also a Facebook group with thousands and thousands of people, like over 32,000 people I saw recently, which is amazing. And so you guys have been such a great support, helping people make this transition and make the leap into a full-time lifestyle. So what are some of the things that people have been asking you in your Facebook group and on your travels? What are the things that when people are thinking about this as a lifestyle that comes to mind, and the questions you get asked the most?
Oh, there's quite a few of them. And that's one of the reasons we have the group too, is because we know when we started, there wasn't a group like that was really about learning and about answering those basic questions. Some of the other groups, they're people who've been out on the road a lot and they don't always want to answer them. So we get a lot of questions about mail. How do you get your mail? That seems to
Where do you vote? Where's your driver's license? Where does your mail go? All your household stuff.
Right, that you don't think about.
And then another big one is, how do you make money? What do how do you live? Because we're not all retired. We all have to work for a living. Not all of us. Some of us retired.
Some of us
the ones,
work for a living.
If we're in our 30s, we're probably working still. And then, what RV to get? Sometimes we get people that come in and give the blank question.
What's the best
RV?
Well,
it's
not a blanket statement that you can make. But those seem to be the top ones. And as for us, we've already done the research. We've already been out here. We've gone
through a few RVs.
Yeah. So some of those questions are easy for us to answer with mail and things now. But if you don't know, you don't even know where to start sometimes.
And sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. You think you don't realize all the little details that you need to get your life in order, in order to live on the road.
Right. There's quite a big list of things that you need to do to transition, I think, from household to RV, and probably some things that I don't even know about yet because I've only gone from house to off the grid. I haven't gone to the RV yet. So,
right.
Looking forward to we're kind of in the transition still. So, what are some things to look for when you, obviously you want to keep into mind, what kind of RV traveling you're going to be doing if you're a family or how many people or whatever. What's kind of a checklist that you would want to keep in mind when you're looking to purchase an RV or find an RV to rent, or what's some things that you would keep in mind?
So the first thing you need to do is understand why you want to RV. Like, what are you getting out of it? Do you want to, go to every national park? Do you want to live off grid? Are you planning to stay in more resort areas? Do you want to travel interstates? Do you want to travel back roads? All those questions guide you towards your RV, because RVs are compromises. They're, you can get a 45-foot RV that's almost like your house. It's got 2 bedrooms and a king-size bath, but you're not going to be able to get it down certain types of roads, or park in, certain off-grid areas. Or you can go with a very small truck camper that'll get you everywhere, but you may not get to shower every single day. So you have to really understand your needs
and what your desire is, what your goals are. And
then find the vehicle that fulfills your needs.
And of course, like you said, how many people are going to be traveling with you? Because you all want comfy beds. And that includes animals. Because you do need to account for that too. If you have big dogs, you might not want a tiny RV. If you have kids too, there would be nowhere for you guys to stand. Yeah. Because we all do the dance in the RV.
Yeah, you find the pinch point, and then you have to figure out the dance where you can rotate around each other to move.
It works out fine. Yeah.
But a lot of people, coming from a house, when they look at an RV initially, they all look too small. They're all too small and too scary. And then people tend to go for the biggest RV they can afford. And some of the wisdom on the internet is buy the biggest thing you can afford, buy your last RV first. And that's assuming you have all this experience and you understand what RV you want in the first place, but you don't.
Right, exactly. And for example, we didn't know exactly what we wanted. We had a pop-up camper before we went full-time, and that was enough space for us, but we were just camping on the weekend, so we knew we needed more space than that. It also did not have a bathroom in it,
so
we wanted that. So we probably listened to a little bit too much advice on the forums. There wasn't as many groups. It was forums were getting that advice, and it was a lot of
buy your last RV first.
And they were talking about it being big and buy a diesel and, nothing but a diesel if you're going to buy a motorhome. And so as we went and looked at things, they started kind of closing in on us, and we ended up buying a 40-foot diesel pusher.
Which is very standard. That's like the standard, I'm going to live in an RV, get a 40-foot diesel pusher, go to Florida, live in Florida forever.
Right.
Sounds like the snowbird
That's
street.
Not us.
It was. Yeah. And that's who we were listening to in the advice. We didn't find the families out there and younger full-timers and people working from the road, and that's not what we wanted to do. And after we got in it was very comfortable. It was actually a really nice RV.
I once came home and Kerensa had 17 people in my RV. And I came home dirty from a scuba dive, and I just wanted to shower, and there was all these people sitting around.
We were at a convergence, so there were a lot of people, a lot of friends around. But we realized that it wasn't what we wanted. We couldn't get to the spots that our friends could go off-grid easily.
Yeah, we would be stuck in a big RV park, and then they would be kind of up in a little hill in this beautiful little space that was cooler temperatures than we had. They had shade, and it was free, and we were paying $60 a night for heat.
Right. So we decided that we needed to change it up. And we had a lot of friends that had gone to Alaska in gas RVs. And we're like, if they're going to Alaska in a gas RV, we're going to be fine in a gas RV, in a motorhome. So we actually went down in size, which most people think of going as you upgrade, you're going up in size, but that's not necessarily how it has to happen. No. So if we had really figured out and known about the types of things that we wanted to do, which again, boondocking and that off-grid stuff, we didn't even really truly realize that we could do that in an RV.
Yeah, we had this idea that you needed some special off-grid vehicle that's specially built, and our friends have everything from a 45-foot tag axle motorhome to little trailers, and we all do the off-grid camping thing, which is called boondocking. So if you hear us say boondocking from here on out, that means camping outside of a campground.
And we had been backpacking into the woods, but for me, that's what that meant. Off-grid was going into the woods, but you couldn't get there in an RV. You had to hike. So if you can think about that type of stuff beforehand, and even national parks, they're often smaller spaces. So you might not want a super huge RV if you want to be in the national park. There's sometimes ones outside. There's usually private parks outside a national park that you can be at. But if you really want to be camped inside, you have to think about that. So all that type of stuff, if we had known a little bit more and really thought about it, we might have started out in something like we have now.
And we went from the 40-foot RV to this 30-foot RV that we're in now. And even at 30 feet, we were worried it was too small. We had to have this big conversation and really think about it. Now that we're in it, it's huge. Like, we still feel huge. We still feel like we could go smaller if we needed to. And I kind of feel like that's going to be our path. We're going to go smaller and smaller and smaller. And then eventually we may want to slow down and go bigger and bigger again. But that looks like our path. But our path is different from other people's path. And that's important, is you got to know what you want. So when you're listening to other people's advice, you can see if like you're on the same page as them.
Exactly.
Because their advice may be, well, I like to stay in a campground every single night, at a resort. And so I can have the biggest RV I want.
Right. And then again, you might get people that are like, that they're going, oh, a truck camper is all you need, or like a 18-foot trailer. And, because that way you can get everywhere, and you're like, but that's too small for me and my family. Right. Like, that's not going to work. So you have to always hear advice, take it and listen to it, because people have been out there and they might know, but think about how it's colored, because they're viewing it through what they want to do and how they actually RV, and that might not be the same for you. So just always remember where that advice is coming from.
Yeah, that's great advice, because I even listening to you, I'm like, I don't really know until we get out there on the road and maybe do some weekend trips or do some sort of smaller trips to see what really we want to do. And so have you found people have been, do people just jump in and buy an RV right away? Or is this something that people test it out a bit first and then, find some way of renting one? Or what have you experienced so far?
There's been kind of a mix of that people do. A lot of people just jump in and buy it. We tested it out in a way that we had a pop-up and we were camping, but that's
we had an understanding of campgrounds, but we didn't have an understanding of large RVs.
Right. And what we still do some campgrounds, but we camp off grid a lot more now, and we didn't do that in our pop-up. So, but some people just jump in and buy it, but you can rent, which is kind of a nice thing to do if you're, especially to get a sense. Maybe you don't know exactly where you're going, but then you get a sense for the different types of RVs. If you start thinking that you really want a Class C, and we can also go over the basic types of RVs here if you want.
That would be good. So I think that would be helpful for our listeners.
Yeah, you're throwing out a bunch of terms, and it's like, what does that mean? But you can go through and rent them, like RV Share and Outdoorsy. They have ones that you can rent from people.
Which is great, because you can, prior to them existing, there was Cruise America and El Monte, and they pretty much have a fleet of RVs, and they're all pretty standard, kind of basic, not really what you might want. And they're pretty much
Class C's, one type of RV, kind of the basic.
Yeah, but if you go through like RV Share or Outdoorsy, you're actually renting from people. So you could probably find an RV very similar to something you want. So if you're looking at an Airstream, you might be able to find an Airstream you can rent.
Right.
Or if you're looking for a 40-foot diesel pusher, you could find a 40-foot diesel pusher. And it's one that someone actually owns and they live in and they've lived with, or maybe not live in, but they travel with. And so it's going to be a nicer RV, and it's going to be a real one. It's not going to be the cheapest one they could get for their rental fleet.
Right.
Yeah. So if we want to go over kind of a basic idea of RVs, so we talked about a pop-up that we had, which is really, it's a trailer, but the top goes down. So
the top pops up.
The top pops up.
It's a tent on top of a trailer.
Right.
They're not really meant for full timing, but we do know a few people that full time in them.
Yeah.
They're not good in the cold.
Right.
Because there's no insulation.
It's just being in a tent.
Yeah.
We got down to the cold one time and closed off things. We had a furnace, thank goodness, but it gets cold. And of course your security there, if you want to leave.
Yeah, it's just vinyl and someone can
unzip.
And then there's truck campers, and those are the kinds of campers that slide right onto the bed of a truck. So if you already own a truck, it's awesome. You can just pick one up, throw it in your bed, and you got to do some things with the batteries. But other than that, it's pretty straightforward.
And they come from like small to some pretty deluxe versions
Yeah,
that do have small
huge truck.
bathrooms. They're usually wet baths, which means that the shower and the toilet are all in the same room and you'll get it all wet.
Yeah.
But, it saves on space and you can be in a smaller space and have that.
Right. And then there's travel trailers, and travel trailers are a huge range. They're Airstreams are travel trailers, little tiny teardrop trailers that are only, basically a bed on wheels.
Right.
Those are travel trailers. And then, they range in size, and they're, one thing that people look at when they look at travel trailers is they don't have any storage. They don't have the big bays that a motorhome has or the big openings a fifth wheel has, but the back of your truck is your storage. And that's something we didn't quite get, because we were looking at some of those and we were like, well, we can't have this because I can't put my scuba gear in it.
Right. The dive part of Drive, Dive, Devour, we had to find scuba gear storage.
Right. So it was just immediately out of our considerations because we couldn't put scuba. But then we have, most of our friends have travel trailers, and a lot of them have Airstreams, but the back of their trucks are so nice. They put a cab on, topper on it. They'll organize it. They'll have solar panels. They'll have their bikes in there, all their gear. And they may have less square footage of storage space, but it's more accessible. So in reality, they have more storage space than we do in our motorhome.
Their back of the truck becomes a garage.
Right.
And you'll also hear travel trailers referred to as bumper poles.
Yeah.
So that's a common term that you'll hear.
One advantage of them is they're lower than some of the bigger options. So if you want to go under trees to get to, an off-grid spot or something, you can sneak into places a little easier than we can in a motorhome. Right,
because they're just not tall, so you can get underneath into the forest where we can't go with the trees. And then you have a fifth wheel.
Your car or something too, so with the travel trailers, you can leave your trailer and take your car then off places. Is that something people consider a lot when they're looking between the motorhomes that you drive and then a tow along?
Yeah, because we tow a car behind our motorhome, so it's kind of a trade-off. So there's some tricks you can do, like with a motorhome. If we go to a small town and say there's a little town festival going on, and we can't park downtown because we're too big, but we can roll over to a Walmart. We can real quickly run back, unhook our car, jump in our car, and leave. No one's really going to question a motorhome sitting in a parking lot. They're going to assume we're inside shopping.
Right.
With a trailer, it's a little more difficult to leave your trailer in a parking lot and drive off in your truck, because then they're like, hey, you just left your trailer here.
Right.
So there's little things like that. And also, again, if you're doing off-grid camping and you want to go scout out a spot, I don't want to drive a 20,000-pound motorhome down a dirt road that I don't know where that road goes.
Right.
So we can park the motorhome at the end, pop the car off, and go. It's a little trickier with a trailer to drop the trailer and take the truck.
Some people do that because they want to check out the road beforehand and the spots. Some people have carried a little bike on the front. Well, bike meaning two things, either a bicycle or a small motorcycle that they can hop off and go check out spots and scout.
So, they all work. I wouldn't worry about it too much. The thing is, with the travel trailer, your primary day-to-day vehicle is your truck.
Right. And same thing with the fifth wheel. A fifth wheel, you sometimes end up with a bigger truck. Mm-hmm. And you don't have the storage in the back of the truck anymore, because the fifth wheel is a trailer that goes over and hitches into the back of the truck.
Yeah.
So you lose that carrying space while you're towing the travel trailer. You could put some stuff back there.
But the fifth wheel has a ton of space.
But it has huge bays underneath, so that's really not a worry.
And that's actually what we started looking at, because the fifth wheels are the most residential feeling.
They are.
Especially if you're planning on month-long stays at each place. A fifth wheel, you'll have ceiling fans, you'll have islands in your kitchen. It'll feel like a home.
Right. They often have bunks if you have kids. Even travel trailers will have bunks a lot of times too. You can find bunk models there, and travel trailers and fifth wheels. And the fifth wheels may have a separate bedroom for the kids. They have bunk rooms and everything, which are nice. They are tall, like a motor. So they're not a travel trailer where you're going to be slipping underneath trees and everything.
Yeah.
They're tall. And if you ever seen one going down the road, you see the truck and then you see this they look taller than motorhomes because of the illusion of having that little truck. They look huge.
But you have this in travel trailers, but primarily in fifth wheels is when you get into the big toy haulers. So then you can have it where you can open up the back and you can have motorcycles or ATVs or even just make a nice office space or big, put your kayaks and scuba gear and all that stuff in there. So that's when you start getting into the real big toy haulers that are, so a lot of people that are into off-road driving, dirt bikes and motorcycles, the Harley crowd, they love those because they can bring all their toys.
Right. And if that's important to you, then that might be kind of the route that you want to start looking at.
Yeah. And then you get into your motorized RVs. And this, once you get into motorized, now you've got another engine to consider, but you have another engine. So it's like it's a pro and a con. Like the downside is it's another thing to maintain. It's more expensive to insure because it's a vehicle in itself. Mm-hmm. But if your car breaks, you can drive your motorhome. If your motorhome breaks, you can drive your car. So it's kind of a trade-off. And then you've got, if you're traveling more often, they can be a little more convenient because you're driving your living room. So if you need to pull over real quick and run back to the bathroom, you can. Or if Kerensa wants to go back and grab a drink or something to eat,
it can sneak off. I mean, you shouldn't be doing that all the time. You're not going to be standing back there and making food, but you can go grab something out of the fridge. Yeah. It's pretty easy. And when you get into the motorized, you have A, B, and C, but those letters, they kind of randomly go. So you're not going, A's smallest and B and then C. It's B, class Bs are actually usually the smallest because they're van types.
Yeah, they're usually they're either converted vans or they're vans. There's the B pluses where it's a van where they've widened the body.
Yeah.
And they're super nice. They're totally mobile, but they're small. So,
they're small.
The smaller they are, the smaller water tanks they have, smaller bathrooms, everything's smaller. But if you can park on a city street, you can park in a parking lot.
Yeah, you can fit in one parking space. Yeah. So you can kind of park anywhere. And
if you're in a town that doesn't charge for overnight parking, you can park at a parking meter and just sleep at a parking meter all night if you want.
Right. But that's kind of easy. And then class C's are the kind of the next step from there. So it goes B, C. And C's, you can get smaller ones that are kind of close to the B size, where you could fit in basically one parking spot. And we have some friends who do that all the time. But the C's can also go very large. And you have super C's, which are
built
like
on diesel. Some of them are built on semi chassis, and they can pull. It's what the race car people will have, and they can pull 40,000 pounds. But a C is basically it's a van front end and chassis, and then they build the box onto it. So the front, if you look at a Class C, it looks like a normal Chevy or Ford van in the front
with an overhang,
with the bunk that goes over, and often there's the bunk over the cab, which is great for kids. Downsides on some of the C's is they're pretty not overloaded, but they're pretty close to the limits of what that chassis can hold. So when you start looking at putting all of your stuff, if you're going to live full time in it, you're putting a whole bunch more stuff than like a weekender would put in it. You might overload them. So that's something to be careful with. And all of these, that's something to be careful with.
Right, because no manufacturer, even though there's a lot of people living in them and a lot of retirees that do it, they still build for weekenders. Yeah. They're not building for us.
Yeah. And then there's the Class A. And a Class A is basically a chassis built for a motorhome, and they build the entire motorhome on top of it. So that's your big box, your big, rectangle box motorhomes going down the road. And the benefits of them is usually have a ton of storage space underneath. They're purpose built. The front chairs can spin around and become part of your living space. Where like a Class C, most of them, your driving and passenger chairs just stay there. So it's kind of,
you step down into it to drive.
So that's kind of lost space. Yeah. And so I guess the Class A's are kind of the motorhome everybody thinks of. And then you can get into like bus conversions, which are a whole different beast on their own, but they kind of follow the same Class A thing. But Class A's are tall, so that you're going to have height restrictions to think about. You're going to, run into trees eventually. And they're more expensive to insure than all the other models because they're more expensive to begin with, and they are their own vehicle. All the motorized are their own vehicles, so you have to insure them.
And they're usually built, I would say, more for couples. There are some bunk models, but the bunks they're just kind of in the hallway. It's not like a separate room. So if you're looking really for like a separate room for kids, it's not as convenient.
Yeah. They do have pull-out couches and stuff, but they're never comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. Our couches have never been comfortable.
So that's what you guys have, obviously.
Right. We have had 2 Class A's. So we went from the pop-up, kind of like the starter one to, hey, let's get a 40-foot diesel pusher. And you can get a gas or a diesel in a Class A.
And I feel like you kind of end up sticking with what you know. So we went straight to motorhome. So when we were looking for another one, we just kind of wanted a motorhome. We didn't want to buy a truck and do all that. But our friends that have travel trailers, they're totally fine in travel trailers. Like, it's not like this is better than that. It's just you adapt and you get used to the space. And, we have friends with an Airstream, and they're like, well, if we had 4 more feet, it would be better. So maybe they'll go buy an Airstream that's 4 feet longer later. But they're never going to go to a motorhome, I don't think.
Right.
Well, somebody knows they went.
Yeah, but then, yeah.
So as far as the type of traveling you see people doing, what type of traveling are you guys doing? Are you moving like monthly? Are you moving weekly? Are you continuously moving? Or are you just really staying in one place and getting to know that place before moving on?
Our pattern we have no pattern, really, is the thing with us. We started out with an idea that we would stay monthly at places. We have heard, and this is what happens to a lot of people. They go out their first year and they're so excited to get out and see everything that, especially when you're not retired, you start and you treat it like a vacation, you're running yourself ragged because you're trying to move every week they'll do
20,000 miles their first year, which is just crazy. Like, Yosemite's not going anywhere. I mean, there may not be any trees left in these places anymore, but the mountains will still be there. Like, just slow down.
And so a lot of people kind of get burnt out that first year. And we read a lot about that people were doing that. So we're like, okay, we're going to stay a month, because if you stay monthly at a campground, you usually get a discount, a price break when you stay for a month. And so that seemed like a logical thing to do. And then we could actually get to know the place a little bit better, kind of get into it. And in our first year, we pretty much did that. But
maybe
then
the first 5 or 6 months.
Yeah.
And then we were like, okay, that's too slow.
And then we
got
started
stuck in the
speeding
south.
up. Yeah. Well, and we were visiting family that first year, the first few months. And, as we said, we didn't live around them. So we were taking extended visits. But we started speeding up after that.
We found that our sweet spot for us is about 2 weeks, because it gives us long enough. You get a full weekend in the location, so you can see whatever's going on the weekend. Long enough you can kind of take it in. But any more than 2 weeks, and we start to get hitch itch. It's where you want to get going again. Yeah. But what we found we really like is, maybe we move every 2 weeks, but we don't move very far.
Right.
Maybe we'll move 80 miles. Instead of trying to like cross the whole country, we spent a whole summer in Colorado just bouncing around Colorado, taking in every little piece of it. And that was amazing. And then once it got cold, we went down to the desert and did the same thing. And then we kind of, as it started to warm up, we started bouncing up the California coast to Oregon.
This was going to say we did that last year. And that's when we weren't even doing 2 weeks half the time there, but we were making very short jumps.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like we were trying to make these long types of, there's some rules about RVing, just guidelines that say the 222 rule is going 200 miles, getting there by 2 p.m. and staying for 2 days. And that way it gives you a guideline so you're not burning yourself out and trying to do too much. But we were doing very, very short jumps up the California coast. So we'd stay maybe even for a few days or a week. So we don't have a typical pattern anymore, but that's how we like to do it, is rather than making these long jumps, we make short jumps and stay.
We even had, even as we were doing that, I reached a point where I was like, I'm moving too much. I just want to sit somewhere. And so one of our locations I wanted to go to was Monterey, California, because I wanted to scuba dive there. So I'm like, let's just do a month there. So we just did it, and we just sat down for a month, and it was fine. And at the end of that month, I was ready to go again. Right. And I think that's what's nice, is mixing it up. You know, if you're starting to feel kind of in a rut, do something different. You know, if you've never camped off grid, go off grid, you know, see what that's like. If you've never, you know, stayed for a long time, stay for a long time, or move for short times or whatever, just.
Right. And that's the great thing about this, is that you can do that. You can choose. If you like somewhere and you're really enjoying it, you can stay longer. There's nothing saying that you have to leave. Yeah. And if you don't like it, if you're like, this town is not for me, go. Yeah. You know,
I think at first people are really worried about not having a place to stay, because every single night your house has to have a home, you know, and so when you start, people want to plan every little detail. They want to know exactly where their RV is going to be at every moment throughout the year, and that really locks you in. You know, if you don't like a place, you just got to sit and suffer through it, and then if you go somewhere you do like, well, you got to leave because you got your next reservation. And so after the first year, we pretty much stopped planning. Right. And we got real comfortable. You can always sleep in a truck stop. You can almost always sleep in a Walmart overnight if you can't find somewhere. A lot of states you can sleep in rest areas. You can sleep at Cabela's and Bass Pro. So you can always find somewhere to go. And that's kind of how we are now. It's like, you know, we'll just go and, you know, figure out where we're going to stay a couple of days before we leave.
And we have friends who have been on the road almost as long as we have, and they still plan everything. Yeah. You know, that's their style. And
but we all make fun of them.
Well, we've got them to loosen up a little bit so that they can come and meet us, because that's another thing, you know, with meeting people on the road. When your friends are kind of within 100 miles, you go meet up, because it's not like you see them all the time.
Yeah.
So
that was my next question. Do you guys travel alone, or do you guys travel with other people, or is it a mix of both?
The majority, it's a mix of both. The majority of the time, I'd say we're by ourselves. Yeah. But right now, we've been with our friends for almost at least 3 weeks, almost a month now. And we're caravanning for a little bit. Some of our friends, they're going to be heading back to the east, and so they're like sticking around us until they have to go, so that they can get in all their friend time, their RV friends, before they have to leave.
And some other friends, we had already made plans in Utah to meet up, and they're right here, so we're going to be hanging with them here. Then they're going to go off to Colorado for a minute and then come back to Utah. But for the most part, we travel alone, but then we'll meet up with somebody and hang for a week or two and then split off again. The wintertime is best for meeting people, because all RVers that aren't crazy are either in the Southwest, in the desert, or in California, or they're in Florida.
He just doesn't like snow.
I hate the cold. So,
that was going to be my next question. He doesn't
want to be anywhere.
Go south, right, for the winter.
Pretty much. And then in the summer, everybody scatters, you know. So the summer, it may be harder to meet up with as many people. But the wintertime's great, because everybody's near each other, and you're basically just hiding from the cold. So
we were used to that in Canada. All of the snowbirds, they all go south in the winter. So
yes,
it's a normal thing.
Yes, we're all kind of beginning our migration south now.
That's gonna be awesome.
Yeah,
we'll be migrating towards California in the fall as well. So that's our plan, is get out of the rain. It's already pouring rain behind me right now. I don't know if you can hear it, but it's like early September and it's pouring rain. This is awful. It's been such a lovely summer. So looking forward to going back to the heat and the sun, and it's awesome. So thank you guys for being with us today. That was so informative. I learned a lot about the different types of RVs. Now, you guys have a special gift for all of our listeners and our audience. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, we have put together a list that's basically a cheat sheet to remind you the important things to look for when you're shopping for an RV.
Perfect.
It's real easy to walk into an RV and get amazed by all the beautiful interiors and everything, and forget to check the insulation, the cargo carrying capacity for all your stuff, how big the tanks are, where the batteries are, all of those things. So our cheat sheet is very focused on the bones of the house and then you guys can worry about the lipstick later.
I mean, there's spots for that because you want a layout that works for you. So there are definitely spots for that on there and things to like put little notes. But that's the kind of stuff you don't want to just, you can get easily amazed and overwhelmed by the lipstick, and you need to make sure that it actually works for you in other ways. So I'm just, for the quick example, if you want to go off grid a lot, you might want larger tanks. So you want to make sure that they're big enough for you. So we have that kind of put together. We have a explanation on how to use it along with it.
It's real easy to paint an RV interior. It's real easy to change fabrics. Right. It's very difficult to put in bigger tanks, or to put in more insulation. So we want you to focus on the important stuff, and then you can redecorate it later.
Not the aesthetics
and just because even when we were when you're shopping, it's very easy to just kind of look around and go, oh, this is great, and then you go back and you're trying to talk about it at home, and you're like, what did this one have? I didn't even look. Yeah. So this keeps you on the path of like checking off and making sure that you get all the information that you need to make a decision, an informed decision when you get home.
And that's amazing because those sales guys at the RV places don't necessarily RV full time or haven't, so they don't know the things that
exactly.
You're used to coming from a house. You walk in, you see a residential fridge and a big TV, and you're like, "This is the one." But your house doesn't have to roll down the street, and there's a lot more to it than that. And most houses underneath are built, pretty much the same. RVs aren't.
Yeah.
So.
And thank you for the reminder too, to really think about what kind of RVing you're going to be doing, what's important to you as a family, where you want to go, and like what things to look for. So that's really valuable. And so for our audience, I really recommend you guys join their RV to Freedom group on Facebook. Check out their rvtofreedom.com blog. It's got tons of resources on there. It's got a new course coming out soon called the Roadmap to Full-Time RVing. And also check out their personal blog, especially if you're a diver. DriveDiveAndDevour.com is their personal blog as well. So thank you, Brandon and Kerensa, for being with us today. And it's been a pleasure getting to know you guys and hear more about their personal journey and how they got to where they are. Make sure you check out their episode on RV There Yet podcast. So once again, thanks so much, guys.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
We'll look forward to seeing you again soon on the road.
Yeah, we'll see you on the road soon. Maybe we'll meet up down in the desert somewhere.
Absolutely. Hiding from the weather.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Right. Later.
Thank you.